Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for being here. Wow, day one, great turnout this evening as well. I'm John Otto, the general manager of Axios Live, and really excited to have this next conversation. Events like these aren't made possible without the support of our sponsors, and so huge thanks to Workday for making today a possible hit. On stage with me from Workday is their general manager and founder of HiredScore, Athena Karp. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So we have a lot to get through in the few minutes that we have. I want to start off a little bit. AI holds tremendous potential for applications at work, everything from automating certain types of tasks to augmenting humans. How are organizations best leveraging that power of these solutions, and how do you see them leveraging those in the future?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll ask a question to all of you. How many of you can think of a task that you perform continually that you wish would go away? And I can give you some examples in HR and finance, right? Expenses, or when you have a new hire and you have to build an onboarding plan, or a performance review of an employee. And so, I think we just heard from Max some extraordinary, longer term ideas and visions, but when we bring it to the now, we've never had technology that could learn from examples. We've always had technology that is business process. You give it instructions, and then it follows the instructions, and then you do the work on top of it. What's different about AI is the ability to have the system not be constrained to things that only follow instructions and are universally always true and can be if then, but rather can learn how you do it and what you do, and then depending on the work, assist you in all those examples I gave: onboarding, expenses, hiring, performance management, so that you actually do it in the best of class way, and you do it without all the time consumption and challenge of how you do that well.
Let's continue on a little bit more, go a little bit deeper on how you're seeing organizations apply this in HR and finance specifically, and making it equitable both for employees but also for the business too.
So this is what's unique about what we're doing at Workday. Many of you might have heard about Illuminate, which is our AI strategy. And what I love about it is the ability to segment by the types of work. So we have the ability to accelerate specific tasks, and then assist you, meeting you in real time in your flow of work. And then transform is really reserved for these complex, multi-stakeholder processes that yield iconic outcomes. And when you start to, instead of AI and this big thing that we have to figure out, and you start to break it down into these different areas, not just of impact, complexity, outcome achievement, but one of the BCG study talks about over 80% of executives have AI as top 3 priorities, but only a third have actually started to realize quantifiable value and impact. And I think that's where Illuminate can really help segment the types of HR problems and finance problems, the ways we want to tackle them, into these very consumable buckets.
Oh, I've heard you refer to the virtual AI exoskeleton. You got to tell us more about that.
Yeah. So what's nice is when we have parallels to AI that aren't different than in the world today. So I think a great example with this virtual exoskeleton in workforces specifically is we've had exoskeletons for decades. So let's take a warehouse worker, right? The average warehouse worker, between the weight of an arm and the weight of a tool, is 17 pounds. They lift their arm on average 4,600 times a day. So if you imagine someone doing that day in and day out, at different age, different genders, different levels of strength, it's impossible, and that's where we have physical exoskeletons. The best way that we like to think about AI is you're giving a digital exoskeleton to do not just mundane work, but also work that might require expertise that people might not yet have, or might not have had the ability to experience that type of work or collaborate with that type of person. And that's actually one of the beautiful things with what AI is enabling, is this almost democratization of expertise. We've always talked about hiring for potential, but the ability for a business to reduce the risk of hiring for potential when you don't have an AI coach to gauge the level of expertise, competency, and the fluency in that type of work is really hard, and AI unlocks a lot of that.
We'll hear about this plenty this week and certainly have, but before then, it's just AI being different in terms of technology transformations than ever before. How does it differ, I guess, when you think about the impact and its application for the workforce? And is there a way we should be thinking about the kind of the definition of skills in the future?
Yeah, so I think connected to that earlier example of this kind of expertise coach for every worker, the first study of generative AI in the workplace was done actually with a group out of MIT, Danielle Lee. She will actually be at Davos speaking on our Workday panel, 9 a.m. on Wednesday at the Workday Pavilion, so you should come. But what was amazing about that research is it took call center workers and it was studied 5,100 call center workers with an AI coach helping them in real time respond to the callers. And what it found was a 2-month employee performs overnight at a 6-month employee level of expertise, an overall 14% increase in productivity, increased employee retention. People felt better about the work that they were doing, so they stayed at their jobs. The quality was higher, as articulated by a reduction of escalations to supervisors. And I think when we take that example of AI, it's this kind of incredible ability to lift people into doing new types of work, into working differently, into adding a lot of times, especially in HR, for example, we're continuing to add. So in recruiting, people suddenly have to also drive internal mobility and employee retention, and they have to make workforces fluid and include contingent workers and drive internal projects. But no one carved off work for them. We just continued to add mandates and agendas that then they have to achieve. And I think that's where, when we think of the overwhelmed employee or the employee who's not doing their best work because of this exhaust or focused on the right skills for them to be doing. And actually at Workday, we have really exciting report that just came out about unlocking human potential and what are these employee skills that with human-machine collaborations, we can give the most time and opportunity for people to display, which is very exciting. And I think the last piece of that is all of this requires, so most everyone here, thankfully, raised their hand that there are tasks in HR and finance that they can think about that they wish would go away or get easier. How many of you are worried about safety from an explainability, transparency, bias standpoint? Okay, so we see some hands. Well, I think it's a very valid thing to be focused on. And that's actually the other layer here with AI, is that when we build it the right way, it has the opportunity to not just be explainable and tell you what data it learned from. There's a lot of focus on who builds AI and what skill sets or thinking or training they have to do that. Where I think it's most exciting is actually the auditability and kind of that end result, whether it's the recommendation or the automation layer, that we can constantly check against, one, is this a better bar or a better outcome than when the humans are doing it today? Because we have that human results data. But two, can we go much higher than where that human bar sets? And we see in a number of places, for example, in recruiting, on average, we're getting over 25% recruiter productivity, but we're also leading to more fair hiring decisions in terms of job access and workforces that look different than what you've historically hired.
So in that case, right, the performance benefits both the employees and the business, what you're seeing in the data. That's 9 a.m. on Wednesday at Workday Space.
Thank you for that shout out.
So we are about to get the hook, but we like to end on one fun thing at Axios. Now, you've had some recent experience on how Gen Alpha will be using AI. You care to share any more?
Yeah. When John and I were talking, we were talking about what's a fun way you're using AI, and I have a 4- and 6-year-old nieces, and my husband was asking them what game computer games they like to play. He's a computer nerd. And they were saying, well, there's not a game that has math and princesses, but we wish that there was. So he said, well, let's go build that right now. So he, with Gen AI and a whole bunch of tools, took him about 3 to 4 hours to build the math princess game. And then they were designing broccoli princesses and all the princesses that they don't see that they want to see. So then what was amazing is if you think about a 4 and a 6-year-old co-piloted and augmented in digital exoskeleton to say there aren't games that are what we want, and even without coding skills, we can, cobbling together with these different tools, design that thing that we wish existed. Now, debugging those games is a challenge when they change their mind and they want to add new levels, but it was honestly really exciting for me to see, I think, what can be possible.
Brings the creativity forward. I'd love to hear. That's a great way to end. It's all the time we have. Athena, thank you for your time today, and a big thanks again to Workday for making today possible. We have one more conversation coming up, and I'll pass it to my colleague, Courtney Brown. Thank you.
Thank you, John.